Excuse me, are you going to help me or just stand there ogling chairs all day? The voice, sharp and dripping with self-importance, sliced through the peaceful hum of the electronics store. I looked up from the ridiculously comfortable gaming chair I was testing. Seriously, my back was already thanking me, to find a man glaring at me. He was probably in his mid-30s, squeezed into a pinstripe suit that was clearly a few sizes too small, making him look less executive and more overstuffed sausage. This, I immediately realized, was going to be a day. I'd been chatting with Chloe, a super helpful employee, about chair ergonomics just moments before he stomped up. She'd actually just excused herself to grab a spec sheet. Sorry. I blinked, genuinely confused. I don't actually work here, pal. I'm just trying to pick out a new computer chair. He scoffed, a loud, theatrical sound that made a couple of other shoppers glance over. Oh, you're not who I was talking to. I was talking to the real employee, not some guy playing dress-up on the merchandise. He shot a dismissive look at me, then swept his gaze around, clearly expecting Chloe to materialize instantly. I couldn't help but let a tiny, sarcastic smile creep onto my face. Right? My bad? Didn't realize I needed an official browsing uniform to be in the same store as you, Your Majesty. That seemed to strike a nerve. His jaw clenched and his eyes narrowed. Look, buddy, you're clearly a noob if you're more concerned with a chair than a high-end gaming rig. Maybe stick to the kiddie section, huh? And then a truly delightful sexist kicker. Unless you're just here to distract the actual staff with your questions. Okay, that was it. My polite patience, which I save for special occasions, evaporated. Hey, I might be a noob when it comes to the latest GPUs, but I'm no noob when it comes to calling out a condescending jerk, I shot back, pushing myself up from the chair. And Chloe was actually helping me perfectly fine until you decided to barge in and treat everyone like your personal servants. His face flushed an angry red, the veins in his neck bulging. Who do you think you are? You're a loser. You don't deserve to even breathe the same air as someone like me. He was practically yelling now, his voice echoing off the shelves of monitors. He took a threatening step towards me, jabbing a finger in my direction. I demand you leave this store. Or better yet, go find me someone who actually works here. Just then Chloe, bless her heart, came power-walking back, clutching a laminated spec sheet. Her eyes went wide at the scene. Sir, she interjected, stepping between us, her voice surprisingly firm despite the clear apprehension in her eyes. Please calm down. He's a customer, just like you. A customer? D-Bag practically shrieked, turning his fury on her. He's a disruptive idiot, and you, he pointed his finger at her, you're just enabling him. Get your manager over here right now. I want him thrown out, and I want you reprimanded for this incompetence. Chloe, to her credit, didn't back down entirely, though her shoulders were definitely tensing. I'll get a manager, sir, but you need to lower your voice. You're causing a scene. Before she could even turn, a tall, no-nonsense guy in a blue polo shirt, obviously a manager, was already striding purposefully towards us. He must have heard the commotion. What's going on here, Chloe? He asked, his gaze sweeping over D-Bag's agitated face, then to me, then back to the rapidly reddening D-Bag. B-Bag immediately launched into a theatrical rant, pointing wildly at me and then Chloe, accusing us of everything from harassment to poor customer service, which was ironic coming from him. He demanded I be banned and Chloe be fired on the spot. The manager listened, surprisingly calm, until D-Bag paused for breath. Sir, the manager said, his voice quiet but carrying undeniable authority, I've heard enough. You're harassing a fellow customer and verbally abusing my staff. This is unacceptable. I'm going to have to ask you to leave the store immediately. B-Bag went from red to purple. You can't do that. I'm a paying customer. I'm about to drop thousands here. He waved vaguely at a cart full of high-end components he'd presumably picked out earlier. Not anymore, you're not, the manager replied, his expression hardening. I'm afraid your business is no longer welcome here, and if you refuse to leave, I'll be calling the police. B-Bag sputtered, then started threatening lawsuits and negative reviews, but the manager just calmly pulled out his phone. Less than 5 minutes later, 2 officers walked in. D-Bag, surprisingly, went quiet. He tried to argue with them, but they weren't having it. They just calmly and firmly escorted him out, his pathetic, "I'll be back," fading into the distance. As the squad car pulled away, I realized Chloe was still standing there, a little pale, clutching that spec sheet like a lifeline. She'd handled it like a pro, but you could tell she was shaken. I walked over to her. "Hey, Chloe," I said, a little softer. "Are you all right? I'm really sorry you had to deal with that." She managed a weak smile. "Yeah, I'm okay. Thanks for standing up to him, Kieran. Most people just avoid eye contact." "He was completely out of line," I told her honestly. "Look, if you want to tell your manager that you helped me find the perfect chair and that I'm thrilled with your service despite his interruption, please do. You handled that like a champ." She actually looked relieved, a genuine smile breaking through. "Thank you, Kieran. I appreciate that." Just then, the manager came over looking apologetic. "Chloe, are you okay? I'm really sorry about that. And Kieran, thank you for your patience." He looked at Chloe. "Don't worry about his supposed thousands of dollars. I already instructed the front to cancel any items he was holding." We both watched as a cashier walked by pushing D-Bag's cart, now empty of his chosen items, back towards the shelves. A small, victorious chuckle escaped me, and Chloe grinned back. Sweet, sweet justice. So yeah, I got my killer gaming chair. But more importantly, I got to see an entitled jerk get a dose of reality, and got to appreciate good people like Chloe even more. Sometimes, all it takes is a little kindness and not being afraid to tell someone when they're being an absolute tool. Worth every penny of that chair. The end.
Liking the vibe so far? Hit that subscribe button and stick around, the next story's even better.
The shriek was so sudden it practically vibrated through the industrial concrete floor of the Costco food court, not from a child but from a woman whose face was already a mottled shade of crimson. She was staring directly at me, and honestly all I wanted was to get this damn damaged bag of trail mix returned and finish my hot dog in peace. See, I'd been on a routine Costco supply run, you know, the usual battlefield prep of toilet paper, snacks, maybe a new gadget I didn't need. Everything was going smoothly until I noticed a tear in one of my snack bags after I'd checked out. No biggie, I figured. Just head back to customer service for a quick exchange. Only customer service was having a day. The cash registers were acting up, doing that slow, agonizing dance of beeps and error messages that always seems to happen when you're in a hurry. The employees were trying their best, bless them, but the line was crawling. And behind me, this woman, a living, breathing embodiment of impatience, was starting to vibrate with an unholy energy. First, it was the exaggerated sighs, loud enough to peel paint. Then the aggressive foot tapping. Soon she started muttering, "Some people just don't know how to do their job, and this is absolutely ridiculous." I tried to ignore her, figuring she wasn't talking about me. But then she leaned in, her voice a low, seething hiss. "Are you just going to stand there all day holding up the line?" she snapped, her eyes narrowed to furious slits. I turned, trying to diffuse the tension with a small, awkward smile. "Hey, I'm just waiting for them to fix the register, same as you," I said, gesturing vaguely at the increasingly frazzled cashier. "Everyone's kinda stuck right now." That did not help. Her face flushed a deeper red. "Oh, so you think this is funny, do you? Is this how you treat customers? Unprofessional?" She spat, jabbing a finger towards my chest. "Where do you even work?" "I need to speak to your manager." That's when it clicked. Oh, she thought I worked here. She thought I was the one intentionally delaying her precious, self-important shopping experience. A slow, mischievous grin spread across my face. The idea blossomed, beautiful and terrible, like a toxic flower. I wasn't just going to stand there and take it. Not today. I met her furious gaze with the smuggest, most unapologetically a whole look I could muster. My head tilted, my eyes narrowed, and with a voice dripping with mock seriousness, I drawled, "Just to ruin your day, Karen." The air actually seemed to shimmer. I heard a muffled gasp from the cashier, who was now desperately trying to hide a smile behind her hand. A few other people in line actually started to chuckle, quickly turning it into coughs. But Karen? Her face went from crimson to a shade of beet I didn't even know existed. Pure, unadulterated rage blazed in her eyes. "How dare you, you insolent little punk! You are fired. I'm going to make sure you never work in this town again, she screeched, her voice cracking. She was practically vibrating. I leaned over the front of her cart, getting right into her personal space. My grin widened, feeling like a villain in a bad movie. You know what, Karen? I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I hope you have a truly excellent life being an entitled asshole. With that, I straightened up, grabbed my cart, and gave a little two-finger salute to the flustered cashier who was now openly biting her lip to keep from laughing. As I started to roll away, Karen, still beet red and sputtering, managed to get one last guttural shout-out. I hope you have a good life being a Karen. I didn't even turn around. I just kept walking, a ridiculous, over-the-top swagger in my step, and waved my hand dismissively over my shoulder. You too, sweetie, you too, I called back, just loud enough for her to hear. Honestly, the rest of my hot dog tasted amazing. Sometimes, you just gotta lean into the chaos.
I swear, some days you just want to find some damn knee pads for your kid. Other days you get accosted by a woman in a hot pink tracksuit who's convinced your $15 plastic watch is a Rolex, and you're just begging for her expert opinion. Guess which kind of day I was having? There I was, Cameron, minding my own business in the sports section, totally zoned in on my phone. My kid just started volleyball, and let's be real, I know squat about the sport beyond don't let the ball hit the floor. So, I was deep into reviewing specs, comparing padding, trying to be a good, responsible parent. The store hummed around me, a comforting drone of capitalism. Then, a sudden shadow. Before I could even look up, a hand, manicured, with far too many rings, slapped right over my phone screen. Not gently, mind you. It was a possessive sort of cover, like she owned the damn thing. My head snapped up, irritation immediately bubbling. "Excuse me?" I asked, probably a little too sharply. The woman in the bright pink tracksuit, a truly eye-searing shade, just smiled, all teeth and condescension. "Darling?" she purred, her voice dripping with an artificial sweetness that set my teeth on edge. I couldn't help but notice that gorgeous watch. Very discerning taste. I blinked, looked down at my wrist, then back at her. Was she serious? This? I held up my arm. It was a cheap plastic digital watch, a gag gift from my sister years ago. It barely kept time anymore. This is plastic. Got it for like $15. It's barely a step up from a Happy Meal toy. I even let out a little chuckle, hoping to diffuse the weirdness. Surely she'd realize her mistake. She didn't. Her smile didn't waver, but her eyes, framed by heavily applied mascara, narrowed ever so slightly. Her hand, instead of retracting, pressed firmer on my screen. Nonsense, dear. I know quality when I see it. That's easily 4 or 5 figures. You must be doing very well for yourself, and that's why I'm here to help you. Okay, now I was genuinely confused. Help me with what? Exactly. Was she some kind of secret shopper? A cult recruiter? She leaned in, lowering her voice conspiratorially, yet somehow still projecting across the aisle. Well, you clearly have money, but you're wasting your time looking at these cheap, subpar things. She gestured dismissively at the racks of sports gear, then back at my phone, which was still firmly trapped under her hand. You need something more appropriate for someone of your obvious means. Let me show you. And then, she actually tried to swat my thumb away from the screen, making a little tesk sound. That was it. My patience, which was already hanging by a thread, snapped. My jaw tightened. Look, lady, I said, my voice dropping a few degrees. I appreciate the totally unsolicited advice, but I'm looking for knee pads for my kid, and this is exactly where I need to be. My watch is plastic. I'm not wealthy, and I really don't need your help. I tried to gently push her hand off my phone. She snatched her hand back, but only to put both hands on her hips. Her face, which had been set in that condescending smile, began to twist. "Don't you dare sass me, young man," she hissed, her voice rising. "I'm trying to be helpful. People with your kind of money often make poor choices in these sorts of stores. I'm simply trying to guide you. Now give me that phone, I'll show you how to properly shop for actual quality." And with that, she lunged, trying to snatch the phone right out of my hand. Whoa. Hands off. I yanked my phone back, stepping sharply away. My heart was pounding, a mix of pure adrenaline and utter disbelief. Are you serious right now? What in the actual hell is wrong with you? I don't know who you think you're talking to, but you need to back off. Right now. You touch me or my property again, and we're gonna have a serious problem. My voice was low, laced with a warning I didn't have to fake. She froze. Her mouth hung open, her pink-clad shoulders slumping slightly. The accusation of young man suddenly made sense. She clearly thought I was an employee she could boss around, or at least a subordinate who should accept her guidance. The realization hit her like a rogue volleyball. Her carefully constructed facade crumbled. Her face in an instant went from indignant red to a mottled, furious purple. She sputtered, unable to form coherent words. Her eyes darted around, probably searching for an actual employee to complain to, or maybe just an escape route. Finally, she just pointed a trembling, ring-laden finger at me. Fine, you're just rude. I'll speak to your manager about your appalling customer service. You just wait. With one last huff of outrage, she spun on her heel and stomped away, the pink tracksuit a rapidly diminishing blur heading towards the front of the store. I just stood there, still slightly shaking, then let out a disbelieving laugh. What just happened? All for a plastic watch and some knee pads? A few minutes later, the store manager, a cool-headed guy named Mark, sauntered over, a wry grin playing on his lips. "Everything okay, Cameron?" he asked, trying to keep a straight face. "I just had a very enthusiastic woman in pink inform me that you offered her terrible customer service while trying to sell her a multi-thousand-dollar watch." I burst out laughing, shaking my head. "Yeah, I'm good, Mark. Apparently, my $15 digital watch is actually a rare collector's item, and she just had to help me find appropriate sports gear for someone of my obvious means." I recounted the whole absurd tale, and Mark ended up leaning against the aisle, practically howling with laughter. "Well," he said, wiping a tear from his eye, "I apologize for whatever that was. Seriously, tell you what, to make up for the traumatic experience of being mistaken for a high roller, I'll give you 10% off those knee pads." I thanked him, still grinning, and finally got back to my mission. Just a dad, trying to buy some protective gear for his kid, and somehow ended up as the target of a pink tracksuited fashion consultant. You really can't make this stuff up. And for the record, I found some great knee pads. Take care, entitled people. See you next time.
This next video hits the same vibe. Check it out.